Hey everyone, Joey here, and today we're going to be doing a full Android, handheld, phone, tablet, whatever you want, emulation setup guide. That means all the emulators, a front end to make it easy to launch it, and everything that you want to do with emulation on Android. Now, if you are coming from another device, another Android device, I do have a backup video that will help you keep everything and bring it over. So all of your saves and all that sort of thing. So if you want to do that, if you are coming from a different handheld or device to a new device, then check that out to see how you can bring everything over. Now, a quick reminder, I do have full setup guides for each emulator we're going to look at today. I go a lot more in depth in those videos, like HD texture packs and all the other things, FPS patches, all that. Today, we're doing the bare minimum, but if you want a lot more, then you should check out those individual videos. One final piece of housekeeping, make sure that you check the pinned comment to see if there are any updates to the video that maybe I missed during the filming or anything like that in the future. Check that pinned comment before making a comment or before continuing the video. Check it first. Okay, and now I'm going to show you two different routes. You can start this guide before getting your actual device, or you can start this guide once you get your actual device. So that's why I'm going to show you two different routes at this point. And as always, you can use the internal storage of the device if you don't want to buy an SD card, or if the internal storage of the device is large enough to store all of your ROMs on it. So you have two options, SD card or the internal storage. Okay, so now those of you that have an SD card and want to set up the device beforehand, with your PC, you're going to need an exFAT formatted SD card. So head to File Explorer, find the drive, right-click it, and click Format. Change it to exFAT as the format type, and then give it a name. Now, inside of this drive, you're going to have two options. I have a pre-created zip with a ROMs folder filled with all of the system folders that you need, but there is no actual ROMs inside, of course. So basically you just get a nice organized setup, and it's nice and easy. You can just drag it, unzip it, and you have everything ready to go. The alternative is you create your own ROMs folder and you create your own systems folders for whatever systems that you want to put on the device. So it's up to you. You can use my pre-configured zip, it is in the description, or make them all yourself. In either event, you are going to need your own ROMs and BIOS files. I have videos on both of those subjects, but you can't really continue with today's guide unless you have ROMs and BIOS files, at least for one system. Start easy and then go from there. For BIOS files, I would suggest that you put them inside of the BIOS folder, which I have in the ROMs folder in the pre-configured zip, or you should just create a BIOS folder inside of the ROMs folder for it. That's all you need to do for anybody that needs to set up things ahead of time before getting the device. Now, just quickly for an Odin 3 intro and what you need to do at the start here, just go through the setup as you would normally when you're unboxing it. So you want to sign in with your Wi-Fi and all of that and just go through. You may or may not get a prompt to update your system once you connect to the internet. I would suggest you update it. Go ahead and click download to get the download going, and then you're just going to have to wait and probably restart when it's done. And there we go. We just want to restart so we can get back to the setup. And you should see upgrade success and we can continue on going through. So just go through. You won't need to reconnect to the internet. Just come through, select your time zone. And now this is important. Once you get to this screen here, you want to choose AOSP Launcher. Because we're going to be using Daijisho as a front end later on, Odin Launcher would be using their launcher, which isn't very good. So we're going to choose AOSP Launcher to make it easy for us in the future. Then just click Next. This is up to you. Do you want to use gestures or do you want to use the 3-button navigation at the bottom to navigate Android? I personally prefer 3-button navigation, so I'm going to choose that. And we're done. Now, for those of you that are going to set up things on the device, what you want to do is pop in your SD card if you're going to be using one on the device. If not, then you can still follow along. But for those of you that are going to use an SD card, we need to format it. So swipe down from the top and you want to go to settings. It's going to be different for each device, but get to the Android settings. And you want to head over to storage, and you're going to see a little drop down that says this device. Choose whatever the SD card is. Mine is called Android. Now you're going to see in the top right, we're going to see format, and we're going to have to format this as portable storage. That's exactly what you want. So make sure it's portable storage and click format and format. Of course, this is going to delete everything on the SD card, so hopefully you did not do anything to it before you put this down here. But again, this is for anybody that's setting things up on the device, not that you set up things ahead of time. So if you did that already, you don't want to be doing this step. Just keep that in mind. Okay, SD card formatted, awesome. Now you want to head over and go into the Files app. Okay, now hit the top left, and you want to go over and find your SD card. Mine is called Odin 3 because that's what we use to format it. Yours might be called something different, but it's pretty obvious which one is the SD card and which one isn't in the Files app. And now we have to create a ROMs folder and put system folders inside of it. Now there's two different ways you can do this. I do have a ROMs pre-configured zip folder with all of the folders inside of it. No games, of course, but it'll make it easy for you to just put that here and you don't have to worry about it. So what you do is download it from the description, and I already did, so I have it here in my downloads, and you're going to see it's roms.zip. What I'm going to do is select it, and then I'm going to move all the way over to the SD card, and I'm just going to move it to the top folder of it. So here it is, roms.zip. Now, what you want to do is click inside of it. You're going to see a ROMs folder. So just push and select, hit the top right, go to extract to, and then go over to Odin 3, and just click extract at the top level. So remember, Odin 3 is my SD card, whatever your SD card is going to be. You're going to see it there. It's a ROMs folder. You can go ahead and delete that zip once you see it. And now if you go inside of it, we have all of our system folders for all of the different systems. So all you need to do now is put your ROMs inside of the system folder. Also, you want to put your BIOS files inside of the BIOS folder. Now, if you're confused on what ROMs and BIOS are, I have links in the description to videos on both of those subjects. ROMs are games, BIOS files are system files for disk-based systems, and you're going to need those, so don't skip it. So check out both of those videos. Make sure that you put whatever games and stuff on here now, and you can use the actual device to do so. So you can download stuff to it if you want, or at this point, you can just use a USB-C to computer cable, and that way you can access the drive on your computer. So all you need to do is insert a USB cable to the device from the PC, and then you should see the drive show up on the PC. On the device, you're going to see a little notification that says file transfer. Make sure that you click yes to that. Now, some devices, you might not get that pop-up. So what you want to do is swipe down from the top, click the charging notification, and then select file transfer to make sure it shows up. Make sure that you keep your screen on for any file transfers, or else it's going to cut off. Okay, now at this point, let's talk about Android settings before we get to the emulators. I'm going to do Odin 3 specific settings at the end of the video for those that want that. But you can swipe down, usually on any Android device, and you're going to settings, and there's some settings here that you can change and do on any Android device. So first things first, one of the things that I like to change, and this is going to be a personal preference type thing, is head over to display. And I like to set the most amount for screen timeout. I don't want it turning off during a cutscene or anything like that. I also want dark theme, so I'm going to turn on dark mode. That should help our eyes a lot better. And that's kind of it for anything to do with screen and all of that. Very simple. There isn't a lot that you need to change on the Android settings side. A lot of it is device specific, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, and now we need to get our emulators on here. So there is a very easy program that you can use to get all of your emulators onto the device. It's called Obtainium. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make it very easy for you. Head over to your browser, whatever browser you're using, and you want to go to my website, and it is just joeysretrohandhelds.com. I have it in the description as well in case it's hard for you to find. Now in the search box, you want to type in Obtainium. It is Obtainium to find our Obtainium post, which is right there, Obtainium Setup Guide. So we're going to head into that. Scroll down, and there's two things that we're going to need on this page. The first is actually Obtainium. So there's a GitHub link right here. Go ahead and click it. And if you scroll down on this page, you want to find the first assets post, and you want to scroll down, and you're going to see show all assets. Make sure you click that, and scroll down again. You're going to see app release APK. You want that, so click that, and download anyways. And now you want to open it. This is going to install Obtainium for us. So just click settings, allow from this source, and then install. And there we go. Now we have Obtainium, and you can just click open it and okay, and all these pop-ups, don't worry about it. We are now in Obtainium. Think of Obtainium as like a Play Store for all of these apps and emulators. Makes it very easy to keep them all up to date and to install them. Now that we have Obtainium, head back to your browser and back to the website. And you want to scroll down, and you're going to see My Obtainium JSON. So scroll down till you see Download My Pack here. And there's a mirror link too if you're having issues with the first link. Ignore the dual screen one unless you're using a dual screen device, but I have a different setup guide for those devices. So just click download my pack here. The first link is a MediaFire one, and you want to click download, and it should download, and there we go, file downloaded. We're back in Obtainium now. Go to import export at the bottom, Obtainium import, and you want to go to your downloads folder, and you want to select Joey's Obtainium JSON. There we go, we have imported 15 apps and settings. This is important. Head to apps, and you're going to see now that we have a whole bunch of emulators and different apps and things like that, all the recommended ones from me. So this makes it very easy for us to just install each one. So let's go alphabetical now. Artemis is for streaming. If you're going to be using Apollo and Artemis to stream from your PC, you want to install that. Not in today's guide, but if you want to install it, it's there. Azahar is for 3DS games. So we're going to install Azahar. Just click install. And for the first one you install, you're going to have to allow from the source for Obtainium. Just head back and then install Azahar. Perfect. Next, we have CMU. This is for Wii U games. Install and then install again. We're not going to be doing Wii U in today's guide. I have a separate video all about Wii U. You should know it isn't still an alpha sort of state. So a lot of things don't work that great, but if you want to do Wii U, I have a full setup guide on it. So you just have to follow that video. Citron is a Switch emulator. If you want to do Switch emulation, you can do that here. I have a full setup guide on Switch emulation that I did for Eden. I don't really use Citron, but it is kind of the same, so you can get both worlds. Daijisho is the front end that we're going to be using, so click install for that, and just wait, it'll take a while. Click install to Daijisho, and we're just going through. Dolphin emulator you're going to use for GameCube and Wii, so yep, we want that, we're going to install that here. MelonDS is for Nintendo DS emulation. You have an option here. You can use MelonDS standalone as we're installing it, or you can use the RetroArch core, which we'll talk about in a bit. Nether SX2 is for PlayStation 2 emulation. So of course we want PlayStation 2. Going to install that. PPSSPP is for PlayStation portable games. So you want to install that. RetroArch is for pretty much every system up to PlayStation 1. So we want RetroArch. It is one of the biggest emulators or front ends combination, whatever you want to call it. So we want to install it. RPCSX is for PlayStation 3 emulation on Android. It is in an alpha state. I am going to install it here. You're going to want to follow my setup guide on RPCSX. It is a separate video to set all that up. It is an alpha emulator. I wouldn't suggest it for anybody new, but if you do want to play around with PS3 emulation, you can do so. SyncThing Fork is advanced, not part of today's guide, but if you want to sync all of your saves and ROMs and all of that across multiple devices, check out my guides on SyncThing, but it's included here in Obtainium. Lastly, we have Vita 3K. Vita 3K is a Vita emulator. Doesn't work that great, but if you want to play Vita games, you can. We have it. And so that's everything. Now that you've installed whatever you want, we can go ahead and do per emulator setup. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do is start with RetroArch. So go ahead and click RetroArch. You want to allow permissions, allow. Now just give it a second to extract and do whatever it needs to do. Okay, now the very first setting that I'm going to change here is only for Snapdragon 8 Elite devices like the Odin 3. So if you have one of those devices, follow this setting. If not, just skip this section for a second. So I'm going to go over to settings, going to go over to video, and it depends on which controller you're using, but video is, or confirm is set to B right now. Go to output, GL, and change it to Vulkan. Head back, just using the back button of whatever it is. Go to configuration file and save current configuration. Back out again, and now quit. And now we're going to head back into RetroArch. Again, that was an Odin 3 or Snapdragon 8 Elite specific setting to fix a bunch of emulators. Now let's continue with the guide. So first thing we want to do is head over to Online Updater, and you want to go to Core Downloader. Now cores are emulators in RetroArch. So you're going to see there's a whole bunch of different ones here. I'm going to throw up a list of the ones that I recommend that you use on the right side. And those are the ones you're going to want to download here as you go through the list. So you saw there we had Final Burn Neo, we use Stella, there's a bunch of Atari ones. I'm going to leave the list of what you want to install. And you want to just go through and check the list and make sure that you're installing the right ones for the different systems, because you're going to be using RetroArch for these systems. So Nintendo DS, MelonDS DS, I mentioned it before, you can use RetroArch for DS games since it's one screen, or you can use MelonDS, which we're going to set up later. It is up to you. Gambate, you're going to use that for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. MGBA for Game Boy Advance games. We're skipping Dolphin because we're using the standalone emulator with that. You don't want to use RetroArch for Dolphin. I use FCM for NES games. Nintendo 64, we're using GLES 3, Mupen 64Plus next. Scroll down. We're using SNES 9X for Super Nintendo. And you want to keep going till we get to Sega. We're going to use Flycast for Dreamcast games, as well as Genesis Plus GX for a bunch of Sega systems. We use Beetle Saturn for Saturn games, and then Swan Station for PlayStation 1. PPSSPP, we are going to be using standalone. We installed it separately, so don't install this either. Now, you want to back out and scroll down on this page, and there's a few things that we need to update here. So go ahead, update core info, update assets, update controller, update cheats, update databases, update overlays, and there's one under that's hidden behind this. Whatever that is, shaders, update it. Now you want to wait for all of these little notifications to disappear. So let's come back in a little bit. Since it does take a while, we can actually just continue on. So just push back to back out, and you want to move over with your D-pad and head over to user interface. We want to go to on-screen overlay and turn off display overlay. This is going to turn off the on-screen touch controls because you don't really need to use them if you have a controller connected. I assume that most people are using a controller with their devices. If not, you can leave that on if you want to use touchscreen controls. Back out, you want to scroll down, head over into input, RetroPad binds, port 1 controls. Analog to digital type, do you want to use the analog stick as well as the D-pad for D-pad only games? I do, so I changed this to left analog. That's helpful. Scroll down, and now you want to set all of your controls. So it says D-pad up, we're going to select it, and I'm going to push D-pad up on the controller. Same thing with D-pad down, and this is basically telling RetroArch what the controls are of your device. So just go through, B button is down, A button is right, Y button is left, and keep going through until you map every single thing on here. So we're going to go select, start, L button, R button, L2, R2, L3, R3, and now you want to do the sticks. So left analog stick up, left analog stick down, left analog stick left, and left analog stick right. Do the same thing with the right stick, and you can stop here. You don't really need to go and map anything else. So stop at right analog right. Go all the way up, and go to save controller profile to save everything we just did with the controls. Back out, and head over to menu controls. Now, if you're finding, like I am, that B button is confirm and A button is cancel or back, and you don't like that, just swap OK and cancel buttons. Now B is back and A is confirmed. That's how I personally want it, so it's a nice easy fix for that. Head over into hotkeys, and now we want to set up hotkeys for RetroArch. The hotkey enable button I like to have is L3. That's one of the buttons in the combination. Now if we scroll down, and you're going to see menu toggle here. So push this, and I like to have it as X. That means when we push L3 and X, it's going to open the in-game menu for RetroArch, which we want. Scroll down, you're going to see quit. Now this is important. I'm going to set this to Y. I like having it as Y, so L3 and Y will exit a game. That is how you want to exit every single RetroArch game that you play. You don't want to use home to exit. You don't want to use back to exit. You don't want to swipe up and exit that way. If you do so, it's going to cause problems. It's not going to save properly in Game Boy Advance games. You're just going to have a bunch of issues. So just make it a habit that L3 plus Y is the way to exit games. Scroll down, fast forward toggle. I like to have is R2. So L3 plus R2 will fast forward toggle. And we can scroll down a little bit more, all the way to load state. I like having that as L1. So L3 and L1, and save state as R1. And then if we scroll all the way down, show FPS is the last one, which we can find right here. And I like having that as A. So those are all the hotkeys that we have for RetroArch. Back out and scroll down, and you want to find confirm quit and just turn that off because it'll just annoy you to have to say, are you sure you want to exit the game? Yes, we do. There is one other setting that you want to change here, and it is called polling behavior. We're going to go find it. Polling behavior, set this to early. If you do not set this to early, your Nintendo 64 games will not launch properly from Daijisho or any other front end. So you want to make this swap so that they all work. Back out, and now you can scroll down and you want to head over to Retro Achievements or Achievements. If you have Retro Achievements and you want to log in, you can do that all here. So it's a nice section to do it. Okay, now back out and go over to Configuration File and save current configuration to save everything that we just did. Now I'm skipping ahead here, but I want to show you what happens when I load a RetroArch game. So here we are, we're in a Game Boy game. And if you remember, we had all of the hotkeys. So L3 plus X will open up the in-game menu. You can go right back. L3 plus R2 will fast forward. L3 plus R1 will save a state. L3 plus L1 will load the state. L3 plus A will show FPS. And then L3 plus Y will exit out of the game. That's what you want to remember, L3 plus Y to get out. Okay, now before we move on from RetroArch, we have to move our BIOS files over to the RetroArch folder, the one that it needs. So head over into the Files app and go into your BIOS folder that you created on the SD card or the internal storage when you set up the device. So I'm going to head over into my ROMs folder, and there's a BIOS folder right there. Now I have mine separated out a little bit. So I have a RetroArch folder for all of my RetroArch stuff, whatever you have. So you want to grab all of your BIOS files. So just select all, and I'm going to do copy to, and we're going to go over into the internal storage of the device, head over to RetroArch, head over to System, and now you want to click copy. So all of your BIOS files have to be inside of the RetroArch System folder, directly in there, no subfolders. Make sure they're directly in there or else they're not going to work properly. Once again, if you are confused as to what BIOS files are, I do have that video that explains everything that you need to know, so you can come right back here to finish up. Now, very quickly, there are Odin 3 specific settings that I need to show you, or else Nintendo 64 will not work properly. So what you want to do is go over to Load Content, and you want to find, if you're using an SD card, it'll look like this, storage, and then the SD card identifier. If you're using the internal storage, it'll be this one here. So it depends on where you have your ROMs. I have it on the SD card, so I'm going to click that. Go over and you want to open a Nintendo 64 game. So I'm going to go over to my Nintendo 64 ROMs. And I'm just going to open Banjo-Kazooie, and I'm going to load, and I'm going to choose Nintendo 64. Now, you're going to notice right away, it didn't work because of the Odin 3. Open the in-game menu, head over to Core Options, head over to RDP plugin, change this to Angry Lion. Go back, and now what you want to do is click Close Content. We're going to go back in, load content, and back to the ROMs, Nintendo 64. I'm going to pick a different game this time, just to show you. And when we click it and open it, now Nintendo 64 should be working properly. And there we go. It is just a setting change that you need to make. You have to use Angry Lion as the RDP plugin, which does mean you lose upscaling if you're going to use RetroArch for Nintendo 64. I'm going to show you later how to use M64Plus FZ, the standalone emulator, for Nintendo 64 games, which I would suggest you use instead of this. Okay, next emulator that we're going to do is MelonDS. So just go ahead and open MelonDS. It's going to ask you to set the ROM directory. So where are your DS games? So I'm going to go over, and mine are on the SD card. And they're in the ROMs folder, and they're in the NDS folder right there. I'm going to click use this folder. And you're going to see they're all going to start to populate. So if you want, you can wait a second, but we have some other things we need to do. So head over to the top right and go over to settings and go over to save files. Now, by default, all of the saves from MelonDS are going to save next to the ROM file. That means in your Nintendo DS ROMs folder. So if you don't want that, which I personally don't, I'm going to turn that off, and it's going to say Save File Directory. So we're going to create our own folder for all of our saves. And now, what you can do is just create a folder. So if you're using the internal storage, just create it at the root. If you're using an SD card, create it at the root. Just create a new folder, and just type in MelonDS. And click OK. Then select Use this folder. Now, any future saves and states are going to be inside of that MelonDS folder, so it's easy for you to find and organize if you want. Back out. And now, let's head over into video. Render, there's two different options. There's software and OpenGL. OpenGL is still in kind of an alpha state. You can use that, and you can use upscaling if you want. And devices like the Odin 3 can upscale up to 8x. You get a lot here. But there are a lot of games that are going to kind of be broken with OpenGL. So this is going to be an up to you situation if you want to use software or OpenGL. If you want the easy option, just leave it as software. It'll be easy. You can turn on the FPS counter here if you want to see frame rate while you're in an actual game and just throw it wherever you want. Back out and let's head over into audio. Now, by default, the microphone source is below. However, if you want to use the device's microphone, which is right here, you can go ahead and use device microphone and then just give it the actual permission. This is going to be device dependent. This device does have a microphone. It all depends on if yours does. Back out, and now let's head over into input. If you don't want the on-screen touch controls, turn off show soft input. Then go into key mapping, and you want to go ahead and just map the controls. So for everything that you see here, then L, R, start, select, and now you have a few things that you can map for hotkeys. So fast forward toggle, I like to have is R2, and toggle microphone, L2, swap screens, I like is L3. That's really the only ones that I actually touch. Back out, and you can go and log in with your retro achievements if you want to, and you have that. Otherwise, that's kind of it for MelonDS. Now I do want to mention something. If you go ahead and load a MelonDS game and it's a white screen, that means you did not get a decrypted DS-ROM. You do need decrypted DS games for them to work in MelonDS, so just keep that in mind. You also don't want to use save states with MelonDS. I find them to be pretty finicky, and if you rely on them, you're going to run into a scenario where that save state doesn't load and it's going to be a bad day. So try and do in-game saves where you can. Something to keep in mind with MelonDS games, when you're in the actual game, to get the in-game menu, you can push the back button on the device and you can see some menus here. Otherwise, if you don't have a back button, you're gonna have to use the back button of your device. So if you're using the 3-button navigation, you use the back arrow to get in there, or if you're using the gesture, it's usually a slide in from left or right. I forget which one it is. But that's how you get to the in-game menu. Okay, next up, we are going to be doing Duckstation. Now, Duckstation, unfortunately, is only available on the Google Play Store. So you're going to have to log in to the Google Play Store to get Duckstation for PlayStation 1 games. Otherwise, you can use the RetroArch Swan Station core for PS1. The main difference between the two, Swan Station has some issues with Final Fantasy games and a few others. If you're using lower end hardware, the Odin 3 would be pretty good. It'll brute force it. But for lower end devices, you might have some issues there. Whereas Duckstation doesn't have those issues. So it's up to you. Okay, now that we're on the Play Store, let's go ahead and search for Duckstation. And it's exactly as it sounds, just Duckstation. You can see it here, and you want to click Install. Go ahead and click Play. And now we're going to go through the settings for Duckstation. So just click Next. And you can leave everything here as Next. BIOS. Once again, we need BIOS for PlayStation 1 games to work. So what you want to do is click Import BIOS. You're going to go to your BIOS folder that you set up with your PlayStation 1 BIOS files. So I'm going to go over to my ROMs folder, BIOS. I have it in my RetroArch folder. And then you can just select your PS1 BIOS. So mine is PSX on PSP 660.bin. And there we go. Imported. You want to make sure that it is imported. And then click Next. Game directories is where is your PlayStation 1 games? So same thing, head over to the ROMs folder. I'm going to select the PSX folder and use this folder. Click Next. Do you have any retro achievements login? If you do, you want to log in here. Click Next and setup complete, click Finish. Now it's going to import all of your PS1 games, so just give it a second. Okay, and they're all imported, so now we have to do some settings. Head over to the top left, and you want to go over to App Settings. If you scroll down on Interface, there is a section here where you can show FPS, so show CPU usage, so GPU usage, whatever you want. I don't need to have those on, but if you want them, they're all here. Otherwise, you want to head over into Graphics. And now, at this point, do you want to upscale your graphics? So with the Odin 3, we have enough power and everything for 5x, which is 1080p, which is the screen. So it depends on you. If you have enough power in your device for upscaling PS1 games, you can set that there. Otherwise, scroll over. There's an Achievements tab. If you have retro achievements, you can do all of your login information here. Back out and head back, and this time go into Controller Settings. Go to the touchscreen, and we're going to turn off to none. That means no more on-screen touch controls. Head over to port 1, and this you can try. So if you want to do perform automatic mapping, you can try that. Usually it doesn't work out that nicely. So what I suggest is that you map them all yourself. So D-pad up, right, down, left, triangle. So you can see that one was different. That's why we want to map it ourselves. There, X, square, select, start. You don't have to map analog toggle. It mapped it. I'm going to clear it out unless you have a game that really needs that. But I haven't really run into many of those games. So L2, but if you need it, that's where you do it. L3, R3, and then just do the sticks. You can stop at right stick up. Now, one other thing, there's hotkeys on the right, so you can set any hotkeys that you want. So for example, I want fast forward toggle to be L3 plus R2. That way we can get fast forward through that. Otherwise, that's all you need to do for Duckstation. Now for Duckstation, when you're in an actual Duckstation game, all you have to do is push the back button of your device to get the in-game menu. And you can exit game and change disk and do other things here. Same as MelonDS, use the back arrow if you don't have a back button on the device to get the same menu. Next up is Dolphin for GameCube and Wii. So just go ahead and open it. And what you want to do, we're in the GameCube tab, as you can see there. Just go ahead and click Add Games and go to your GameCube ROMs folder. So I'm going to head over to ROMs, going to over to GameCube or GC and allow. And you're going to see it's going to start to populate. You want to do the same thing with the Wii tab if you have Wii games. So head over to Wii, Add Games, ROMs, and I have some Wii right there, and click Allow. Now it's going to populate both the GameCube and Wii with all of your games. Now you want to head over to Settings, and we want to go to Config, General, and you can enable cheats. That way we get some cheats. Back out, and go over to Graphics Settings. Now this is going to be very important. There is a video backend here of OpenGL and Vulkan. I would suggest, if you don't know any better, leave it as OpenGL. However, Vulkan can be better in a lot of scenarios for different games. I will show you in a little bit how to do per game settings for Dolphin if you want to try this out. I would suggest just leaving it. OpenGL, leave it as default. There is a setting here, compile shaders before starting. You want to enable that. Head over into Enhancements, and now Internal Resolution. Do you want to upscale GameCube? Is your device powerful enough to upscale GameCube and Wii? If it is, you want to check 3x native or whatever your display is. So we have a 1080p display. I'm going to set it to 1080p. This device is powerful enough for that, so I'm going to leave it there. Back out. There isn't anything else you need to worry about here, except if you go to statistics, you can show FPS, you can show frame times, you can do all of that. So it's up to you on if you want that. Back out, and go over to GameCube input. Click the little settings icon on the right, and we want to scroll down and now map the controls for GameCube. So A, B, X, Y. I like R1 as Z, start as start, and then the control stick we want to map here, left, right. Do the same thing with the C stick, which is the right stick. And this is important. Notice how this is axis 14, and this has a whole bunch of other stuff. It mapped incorrectly. So you want to do is tap it and make sure that it matches up. You're going to notice that it might happen in Dolphin a lot. So just be careful when you're mapping. Triggers, you want to use the L2 and R2, and then left analog, same thing. L2, R2. Scroll down, do the D-pad up, down, left, and right. Back out. For Wii input, I'm going to leave that for my dedicated guide for Dolphin. There's a lot more that you need to know about Wii inputs. I can't do it all in this video. It'll be way too long. So just check out that video if you plan on playing any Wii games. Back out. And now I promise to show you per game settings. However, I'm going to show you it because you need it for the Odin 3. So this setting that I'm about to show you is only for Snapdragon 8 Elite users. Otherwise, don't do the setting, but learn how to do per game settings. So what you want to do for Snapdragon 8 Elite users, push and hold on an actual game. You're going to see here it says edit game settings. When you do that, any settings you change here are only for the specific game. So for 8 Elite users, head over to graphic settings, and you want to change shader compilation mode to exclusive Uber shaders. And you want to do this for any Wii games that you have trouble with. I'm going to show on screen now an example of what a Wii game that has trouble looks like. It's Super Paper Mario. It's got all weird textures and all of that. And there's a few other games like this. So if you run into this situation, do per game settings and change this to exclusive Uber shaders. Okay, now what you want to do is just click a game to jump right in. you're going to notice we have on-screen touch controls. So you want to push the back button on the device, or if you have a back button, back arrow, or the back gesture to get the in-game menu. Head over to Overlay Controls. Then you want to go to Toggle Controls and Toggle All to get rid of them all. Once you're all done with that, you can just exit emulation. Okay, next emulator is Nether SX2 for PS2 emulation. Go ahead and click Next, and we're going to click Next, and we're going to click Next again. And now it's going to ask you to import BIOS. Once again, you need PlayStation 2 BIOS files. So, heading over into our SD card or internal storage, ROMs folder, BIOS folder. I have a PS2 BIOS folder. So I'm going to go ahead and select my PS2 BIOS file, and there you go. And make sure I select it with the little arrow or circle, and then click Next. Game directories is where are your PS2 games located. So once again, into the ROMs folder, the PS2 folder, and use this folder. Click Next, and finish. Now it's going to load up all our PS2 games. Of course, we have settings to do, so go ahead and click the top left, go over to App Settings, and if you want to scroll down on General, there are some settings here you can do, like Show FPS, Show Speed, all of that. It is up to you on if you want to do that. Head over into Graphics, and there is a GPU render here, OpenGL or Vulkan. It's going to be up to you. I would suggest just leaving this as OpenGL, but if you run into a game that's not running that well, try Vulkan. If neither of those work, then you're going to have to Google for settings for that specific game. Upscale multiplier. Do you want to upscale the game? Is your device powerful enough to upscale? If it is, you can choose 3x for 1080p or whatever it is. Head over to memory cards, and now this is very important. What we're going to be doing, create new card. We're going to create a folder card. We're going to call it memcard. Now, the reason we're doing this is because with the normal default saves, you're going to fill up that saved memory card, and then it's going to be a whole disaster. With folder-based memory cards, it's unlimited. You're not going to have any issues with saving. So you want to do this right away. Go ahead and click Create on the right, and you're going to see, scroll down, go ahead to memory card 1 and card name, and choose memcard.ps2 folder, the one we just created. Now, memcard 2 is never going to be used, but if you want, just do another one, create memcard 2, and then you can create it here and just select it on card name. It's up to you. You don't really need it, but you can. Lastly, scroll all the way over, you're going to see achievements, and you can enable retro achievements if you have them. Back out, and this time we're going to go over to controller settings. All right, and now at this point, go to touchscreen, and touchscreen controller view, and click None. That's going to remove all the on-screen touch controls, so don't forget this. Head over to controller port 1, and like Duckstation, you can choose automatic mapping, but it usually gets it wrong. So you want to do it yourself. Just D-pad up, right, down, left, triangle. So you can see there, you got it wrong. And just go through. Analog toggle, once again, you don't really need, but if you find a game that needs it, then go ahead and do it. Otherwise, go to the left stick and do the left stick. Right stick, same thing. Lastly, if you scroll over, go over to hotkeys. One of the ones that I like to do is toggle fast forward. I like L3 plus R2 for that. And there's other things here if you want to set any other hotkeys, but that's the only one that I really use. Back out. Now just go ahead and click a game, and I'm going to show you the in-game menu and what that looks like. Usually you push back if you have it on your device to get the in-game menu. And you can see here, change disk and all the other things. Otherwise, the back arrow is also another way on your device to get to the in-game menu, or you can swipe in if you're using gestures for back. Let's go ahead and do Azahar next for Nintendo 3DS games. So click Get Started, and we want to give all the notifications. Next. Now we have to select a folder to save all of our data in. So what I'm going to do is select User Data Folder, and you can create this wherever you want, internal storage, SD card, whatever you want. I'm going to put on the internal storage, and I'm just going to call it Azahar. Azahar. And this is going to have all of our data in it, which is great. Click OK. Perfect. Applications is where are your 3DS games? So we're going to click that. Head over to our ROMs folder. Head over to the N3DS folder and select it. And you're going to see next and done. And now all of your games should start to populate. This is important. You want to keep this in mind here. Encrypted files and 3DS files are no longer supported. Azahar needs decrypted 3DS ROMs. They are kind of difficult to find. I don't show them in any of my videos, so you're gonna have to Google decrypted 3DS ROMs and you might find them on different websites. One thing you do want to keep in mind is they do need to be renamed from .3ds to .cci for them to work. So there's two things you need to have: decrypted 3DS ROMs, and they have to be in the CCI file format. Otherwise, go ahead and click Settings at the top and jump into Settings, and you want to go over to Gamepad. And now you want to map for a Nintendo 3DS. So just go ahead and map your controls for this. You can skip home, never really use that, or I've never had to use it. Up, down. You only have to do one of the axes for C-stick and that. D-pad, same thing. However, you should keep in mind, if you notice right after that, it says only map the D-pad if you're facing issues. So don't map these unless you're having issues with how you mapped the D-pad above. So scroll right through, and then we have triggers. So go ahead and map all of this. Lastly, you have hotkeys. So swap screens, I'm going to put as L3, and there isn't anything else I like to use except for turbo speed if you want to get fast forward. Otherwise, you can set up whatever hotkeys that you want. Back out, head over into graphics. Now you have options here. I'm going to suggest that you leave this as OpenGLES, and you want to turn on asynchronous shader compilation. That will help with stutters. Otherwise, internal resolution. Do you have a 1080p display? You can change this to 4x. You can upscale if your device allows it and has enough power to upscale. You can set that here. Go ahead and back out. And there is one other thing that I want to mention. If you go over into GPU Driver Manager, you can install custom drivers. Now, this will help in a lot of scenarios. The 8 Elite isn't one of those scenarios right now, but you might want to try GPU drivers. They do help with Fire Emblem Awakening, for example. If you have a Snapdragon device, then you want to try GPU drivers. Otherwise, for Mali devices and others, you might not be able to do anything with that. Now, if you tap into a game to load it, you're going to see the on-screen controls. So what you want to do is push the back button or swipe up, back arrow, or back gesture. And now you want to go to Overlay Options, Show Controller Overlay. You also see here, Show Performance Overlay if you want to see performance and all of that. You can see all of that. Also, there is a landscape screen layout if you want to change the layout of all of this. So maybe you want large screen or whatever you want. That's all here. So you can change that to whatever you want. To exit, just back button and then scroll down and close game to exit out. Next up is PlayStation Portable with PPSSPP. You're going to open it, and the very first thing that it's going to ask you is to create a PSP folder for all of our saved data and all the other data. So click OK. And like we've done before, I'm just going to put it on my internal storage, but you can put on your SD card if you want. And I'm just going to call it PPSSPP. Done. And I'm going to click Use this folder, and then click OK. Now, we want to tell it where our games are. So head over to Browse, and you want to go to your ROMs folder, as usual. Go over to your PSP folder, and click Use this folder, and allow. You're going to see all your games show up, which is great. Head over to Settings, and you don't really need to change anything here except for the rendering resolution. If you have a device powerful enough, set it to 1080p. The Odin 3 is powerful enough, so go ahead and set it to 1080p. Otherwise, head over to Controls, and on-screen touch controls, just remove those. Go over to Control Mapping, and now we want to map our controls for a PSP. What I like to do is clear all, and then I just do it myself. So D-pad up, down, left, right, circle, X, square, triangle, start, select, R, L. Now analog up is the left stick. Scroll down, and there's one other thing I like to do, and it's speed toggle. I like to have that as R2 for fast forward speed. You can also set pause to L2. It just gives you another in-game menu option. So we're going to push back. One other option here, head over to Tools. You're going to see Retro Achievements. So if you have Retro Achievements login, you can log in here for that. Back out, head over to System. And if you want, you can enable cheats, which is right there. You can use cheats. Open up a game, and you're going to see everything works pretty good. You can use the back button to get the in-game menu. You can use L2 if you mapped it. You can use the back arrow, or you can use the back gesture. Okay, next up is Vita 3K for Vita games. So just go ahead and click Vita 3K to jump right in. Select your language, so English. And now you want to change emulator path. So what we're going to do is click Change Emulator Path and Access to all files. Click Back. And now you want to create a Vita3K folder, either on your internal storage or the SD card. I'm just going to do it on the internal storage. It's up to you. Vita3K and done. And now click Use this folder and allow. And you're going to see here that it changed over. So just click Next. Now we have to install firmware for this. Thankfully, Vita3K gives us the links right here. So click Download Firmware, and then you just scroll down and you're going to see Download Update. Just click Download Update. And it might not download. If it doesn't, push and hold on it, and then click Open in a new tab or whatever. And there you go. File can't be downloaded. Just click Keep, and it'll download. Head back to Vita3K and do the same with Download Font Package. Now this one could be a little wonky, so what you can do is hit the top right, change it to Desktop Site, and then try and tap and download. You might have to click one of the two options here, or refresh. Apparently refresh works. It's a little wonky, but you'll get there. Okay, now you want to do Install Firmware Filed, and you want to go to the two that you just downloaded, so just click Recent, and you're going to see them here, so install both of them. I'm going to start with PSV Updat. Let's go ahead and install it. It's going to take a second. Then click OK. Then do the same thing, install firmware update, and do PSP2 Updat. And there we go. Click OK. Go ahead and click Next, and OK. You're going to get a pop-up. Just scroll to the bottom and click Off Show Next Time and click Close. Go ahead and create a user. So I'm just going to leave it as user 1. It doesn't really matter, but click OK. And then I'm going to do automatic user login, so I skip this next time. And there we go. We are now in PS Vita or Vita3K. First things first, head over to Controls, and then Overlay, and Show Gamepad Overlay, just turn it to off. That way you don't see anything in a game. Go to Controls, Controllers, and then you're going to see your controller. Just tap it. And you want to map this. Now, the ones that I usually find that are wrong are the buttons. So triangle, cross, square, and circle. The rest are usually correct, but if you want to check it, go ahead and check them all. Click Close and Close. To install your Vita games, you want to go to File, and then you can install PKG or Zip or however you have them. That's how you install them. Otherwise, you can click Exit. One very important thing about Vita3K is it's not really meant for Daijisho. It is very difficult to set up Vita3K to launch from the front end. So when you want to play Vita3K games, just launch Vita3K as the app. Okay, next up is M64Plus FZ for Nintendo 64. And so we're going to go to the Play Store for this one. And what you want to do is search for M64Plus FZ emulator. There are two of them. There is a Pro version and a free version. I would suggest that you buy the Pro version. It isn't that expensive. It removes ads and it's just better overall. But if you're going to be using the free version, then you can use the free version. You'll just find it a little bit lower down. You can see it here. Make sure it's by Francisco Zurita. There are copies for whatever reason. But I'm going to install the free one just so everybody can see in case you are going to grab the free one. Go ahead and allow notifications and just wait. And now the very first thing we need to do is tell it where our Nintendo 64 games are. So click plus, select folder, and go over to your ROMs folder and your Nintendo 64 N64 folder whenever it loads. There we go, N64. Use this folder, and now give it a second to load. Okay, now as usual, we have to do settings. So head over to the top left and settings. And if you want to go into display, what you can do is change the rendered resolution. So it's basically upscaling to whatever you want. So it's at 480 right now. If you want to go to 1440 by 1080 or whatever your device can handle, it is up to you. I'm going to leave it as 640 by 480 because I'm a bit of a rebel. Otherwise, you can scroll down and you can see frame rate. So if you want to see the FPS in game, you can change that to top left, top center, wherever you want to put it. Back out and back out. And if you want to scroll down, we want to go over to data. Before we do anything else, let's go over to data. And you're going to see game data storage location. Right now it's on internal, which means it's very hard to reach. What we're going to do is change this to external. And then external game data location, we're going to create a folder, as we've been doing with other emulators. I'm going to put it on my internal storage, but go ahead and create a folder just at the top level and call it M64 Plus. And click use this folder. Now, all of our save data, all of our data is going to be stored in that folder, so we know where to find it now. It's very easy. Make sure you do this before loading or playing any games, because if you do this after, it doesn't transfer your saves and stuff over. So it's why we're doing it right away before doing anything else. Back out, and now you want to scroll down into Profiles and go to Controller. What we're going to do is click New, and we're going to just call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it Joey Controls, because we're going to set up our own controls. So I'm going to call that and click Done and click OK. Now we have to map our controls for Nintendo 64. So L, R, Z as like R2 or L2. Actually, L2 makes more sense, I think. So I'm going to L map and do L2. Start A, B. Now the C pad, we're going to do as the right stick. However, in a lot of games, you may want to have them as a different control style. It works a lot better with some games. So you can create another profile with however you want the second setup to be. And then I'm going to show you in a bit how to put that on a per game basis. So maybe you like this with all games, but maybe some games you want a different profile for controls that works better. But continue mapping. So down, then the analog stick. And that's it. Now there is one other thing here that you can map, and is the back key. It's up to you. The back button is here. There is a back arrow and there's a back gesture. If you want to map the back key as well, you can if you need it. Back out, head over to Select Profiles, and we're going to change Controller 1 profile to Joey Controls, or whatever you called it. While we're here, head over to Emulation Profile at the top, and we're going to change this to Glide N64 Medium. It is just a lot more compatible with a lot more games. So go ahead and change that. Back out. Now, what you want to do is just push on a game, and you're going to see here, if we scroll down, it says Settings. If we go to Settings, and we scroll down all the way to Controller, our Controller 1 profile is default right now, which is Joey Controls. So if you happen to create a second profile with a different layout, you can select here to use it for this specific game. Otherwise, all of these settings are per game settings. If you need to change them, we don't need to do any of that. All you have to do is click Resume to start it up. And the very first thing you're going to notice with a Nintendo 64 game is there's going to be on-screen touch controls that show up. Although, because we're using the free version, they disappear. They do disappear after, I believe, 5 seconds or so, 5 or 10 seconds. So don't worry about them too much. Because you're using the free version, they'd show up, but by the time you get to the game, it doesn't really matter. Use the back button or back arrow or back gesture to get the in-game menu, and you can exit through here. Last thing that we are going to set up, and it is GameHub for Steam games. So you're going to head to the Play Store, and you're going to type in GameHub. You're going to see it right over here, GameHub, and click Install. Give it a second, and now just click Open. And you want to agree to the privacy policy. And now you can choose to log in with an email, Apple ID, Google. I usually just use Google. And you have to agree to the bottom little circle, and then click Allow and Allow. Now, once you're in, head over to My in the top, and then you want to see Steam. So what you can do now is sign into Steam with your Steam account. Then you're going to see all of your games show up, and you can install and play your games. I have other videos on GameHub that you might want to check out. It'll all be in the description, but that's how you install Steam games on Android. Okay, and that's all the emulators that we're looking at today. For Wii U, which is CMU, Switch emulation, which is usually Eden, and RPCSX, which is PS3 emulation, I have separate videos on all of those. The only reason I haven't put them into this video is because they're a lot more advanced and they are kind of in alpha states for a lot of them. So you're going to want a separate video to install those. But now we can actually get into the front end, which is the last part of today's video. Go ahead and open Daijisho, and there is 2 of them. I don't know why, but we're just going to click the one on the left. And this is going to be our front end. So once you're in, what we want to do is head over to Library, and you're going to see something called Download Platforms. Click that. And now what you want to do is select all of the systems that you have games for. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm just going to select anything that I have games for. So I'm passing through. I see Dreamcast. I do have that. I have Final Burn Neo games, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, GameCube. Keep going. I do have Neo Geo Pocket Color. I have Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS, NES. All this is doing is telling Daijisho what systems we have. What do we need this for? So we just have to select all of the games. And don't worry, if you are missing some, I will show you how to add or remove some later. So just go through. You're going to see PS Vita. Remember, again, you don't want to use PS Vita for Daijisho. It does not work properly and it does not work well. So PlayStation, PS2, PS3, Steam. You have a bunch of options here. Super Nintendo. And that's it. So I'm going to click import and give it a second. And there we go. So now you can see here at the bottom, here are all of our systems. You can navigate using L1 and R1 to get to the different parts of Daijisho. Otherwise, on the bottom, use the triggers to get to the different systems, and you can see them all at the bottom. Now, if you push L1 or R1 all the way over, you can get over to library, and you can click download platforms, and you can add or remove as you need to over here for any other systems if you might have forgotten them. Heading back to library, and this is where things get a little bit complicated. So what I'm going to do is start off with Game Boy Advance. You're going to have to repeat these steps for every single system. First things first, we have to tell it for Game Boy Advance what the path to our games are. So click Paths, click Add More, and we're going to go over to our SD card, ROMs, GBA, and Allow. Now click Sync. What that's going to do is go ahead and find all of our games and add artwork and all of that fun stuff. So just to show you, if we head into Library, you're going to see all of our games here, and it hasn't loaded the artwork yet, but it's going through and it's going to do that. Now, you might be tempted at this point to just launch a game. Let me show you what happens. If I click Advanced Wars, it's going to pop up with a pop-up, and we're just going to click Confirm, because sure. And you're going to get a black screen. It's not working. It's broken. Nothing's happening. I got to show you why that happened, but I want to show you what happens if you do it wrong. Just wait for RetroArch to fully crash, and now you can click Close App, and we're right back here. Go ahead and back out to the main screen. There's a little pencil icon in the bottom right. Go ahead and click it. Scroll down, and you're going to see here it says Player Settings. What this is asking for is what emulator are you using for Game Boy Advance games? So if you notice here, for GBA, RetroArch 64, that's all correct, but it is saying VBA next. If you remember from before, we are using the MGBA core. So what we want to do is head over to GBA RetroArch 64 MGBA, and we're going to select it. And now I'm going to click Save. Now, when we go over to Library, and I click Advanced Wars, and we get rid of this pop-up that we're going to replace in a second, our game actually works. That's because we have to tell Daijisho, number one, where our games are, but number two, what emulator or core we are using. Now to exit RetroArch, you got to remember this, L3 plus Y is the way to get out. Now we are back in Daijisho, then we can go ahead and play other games. So now you have to repeat those steps for every single system that you added to Daijisho. And I'm going to put on screen now what the actual player settings are for each system. That way you don't have to make any guesses on what the right one is. You'll have it on screen, just refer back to this for every system. You could just pause the video on this section, and that way you know what to use for each system for player settings. So just go through, and I'm going to do another one. I'm just going to do Game Boy really quickly. Go out over to Paths, Add More, ROMs, Game Boy, use this folder, Allow, Sync. Make sure we go to the little pencil icon. We're going to scroll down. And this one is actually correct, so I don't have to change it, but it is GB RetroArch 64 Gambate. Perfect. Repeat for all the other systems that you have. Once you're all done that, if you head over, Apps is where you're going to see all of your apps, so you can launch anything that you want from here. It is a launcher, so it's all easy. But let's head over to Settings now. Now that we're in Settings, head over to Library, and you want to scroll down, and you want to do Clear All Disjointed Items on Sync, and you also want to disable player warnings. That'll get rid of that killing processes error that we kept seeing pop up whenever we loaded a game. So it's good to remove all of those. Head back to Settings, and you can just usually B to get back out, and go over to Appearance. Now, if you want some better wallpaper artwork, that's where all of this is. You can see it all here. There's a bunch of different things here. So if you want to just play around one day and just see what you like the best. Otherwise, I like Pop. So I'm going to click Pop and download the pack. And I'm going to show you in a bit what that looks like. So now when we hit back and we head back to the library, now we have Pop. And you can see it looks a lot better than what we had before for all of these systems. I like it a lot. So it's nice. Head back to Settings. And this time we want to head over to Video and Sound. And now you want to toggle Preview Video off or on. Depends on if you want it. I don't want preview videos. I don't need them. But if you want it, then leave it. If you don't want it, you can turn it off here. That's how you do it. Back out. And now you're going to see one thing at the top here, Open Android System Settings. All we did was set up Daijisho, but we haven't set it to run as our home app. So you want to go into there, and you want to scroll to Apps, head over to Default Apps, and you want to set Home App to Daijisho. What that means is, now, when you boot up the device, it's going to go right into here, so it'll be a console-like interface. Or, if you're in, let's say, Chrome, and you want to get back to Daijisho, you push the home button twice. If you have a home button, it'll bring you right back here. So it's nice because it just makes it more of a console-like experience so that when you restart the device, you turn it off, turn it on, it's going to bring you right back to Daijisho, have all of your systems. You can not have to use the touchscreen. You can just navigate everything using the controller, and it's just nice that way. So we are restarting right now. I just want to give you a quick look at what that looks like. And as you unlock, perfect. Here we go. Now we're right in. You can go and play whatever you want, go to whatever system, and off you go. That is it for the emulation setup guide. For the rest of the video, I'm going to do some Odin 3 specific settings. So if you were here for just general Android emulation, you are done. Go and enjoy your games, have some fun. If you need extra help, there are dedicated emulator guides in the description. I would suggest you check those out first, and then if not, come down and join the Discord, and I can help you out there. Okay, so for Odin 3 users, some settings that you should be aware of. If you swipe down from the top, this is where you have some quick settings tiles. So you're going to see here there's performance mode one, standard, performance, high performance. I like to stay in either standard or performance. It is up to you. There are going to be some times with like Steam games where you might need high performance, but this is all up to you. So I'm going to show you in a second though how to do per game settings or per app settings. So I prefer to just stay in standard and leave it off. Joystick lights, if you want to play with those, and if you click the little arrow, you can play with the little colors and change it to whatever you want. The fan, do you want it on quiet, smart, or sport? I would suggest smart. It'll ramp up as it needs to. It'll ramp down as it needs to. So usually you won't hear it. You will still get the little bit of coil whine, but smart is probably the best option. Controller style as Odin, I would also leave that unless you're going to change that to the Xbox layout or disconnect. It all depends on what you want, but I would suggest leaving it as Odin. I wouldn't suggest touching L2 and R2 mode. Smooth display, you definitely want to have this as 120 Hz forever. There's no reason to ever change this, so leave it as 120. Then we have charging separation. If you plan on using this a lot while charging or while plugged in, if you turn charging separation on, it'll stop charging the battery and it'll start charging the device itself. So it helps to make the battery last longer, and it just helps in a lot of different ways. So if you want to turn that on to avoid overcharging the device, you can do so. If you swipe over, you can get to Bluetooth, you can auto rotate, do not disturb, screenshot, hotspot, bunch of different things. However, there's one thing that you should be aware of here, and it's called floating icon. Now, if we go ahead, and I'm just going to open up Dolphin. Notice here, there is a white line on the right side. If you swipe in, there's a whole menu. What we want to do is head back to floating icon, click the little icon, and then turn off the transparency. Now, it still works, but we don't see that little icon. It'll show up in all games, so it's annoying. Turn that off right away. If we continue over, there isn't much else that you need to know about here. I like to turn off location. We don't really need location on this device, so why not just turn that off? Otherwise, that's kind of it for swipe down settings. Now, I did mention per game settings or per app settings, and I'm going to show you an example of that now. Let's say that you are using, I'm going to use Dolphin as an example. Let's say you're using Dolphin. Swipe in. There are settings here on the bottom. These settings will only apply to this specific app. So right now, its gamepad is set to follow global, and global is Odin settings, so Nintendo layout. If you want, with Dolphin, if you want to use Xbox style, it don't really make sense, but if you wanted to, you could set that for this app here, or an L2 and R2 mode. This makes more sense if you're using, let's say, Xbox Game Pass or Artemis. You could set it to Xbox style. Also, you can set the performance mode on a per app basis. So we're in Dolphin, maybe we want performance mode to show up when we're in Dolphin, and that way you can have it here. Maybe we're in GameHub and you want high performance mode for GameHub. Up to you. Also, you have the fan modes that you can change. So there's quiet, smart, and sport. So on a per app basis, do you want Dolphin to use quiet, smart, or sport? You have the option here to set whatever you want. It's important to note, once you set all of those and do it, if you go and swipe down, you're going to see that you can't touch the fan, you can't touch the smart or the performance mode. You can touch the controller mode, but I wouldn't touch that while you're in an app that has per app settings. So just keep all of this in mind for when you set everything up, that these are all per app settings. Okay, and the last thing that we need to look at today is Android settings to do with the Odin 3. So we're going to head over to the settings, Android settings. We were here earlier, but there are some other settings for the Odin 3 specifically. So scroll down and you're going to see the Odin settings right here. If we head inside, there are a few settings that have to do with the Odin 3 specifically. So there's the vibrator strength settings if you want to change the rumble. There is a charging limit that they just added. So right now, if you want to put a 80% charging limit for it to stop at 80%, you can do so. There are a few other settings that you can change here. Charging separation is here again. Charging LED indicator. If maybe you don't like that little LED, you could turn that off. Video output mode, I would suggest that you come here often. If you are going to be docking to a TV, you want to make sure that you're selecting the right option for your TV. So you have the options here, and there's a few other settings to do with video output that you need to change. If you want to change, they're all there. Otherwise, the only other changes that you would make are M1 and M2 keys. So on the back, you have your little back buttons. You can set them to whatever you want. So M1 or M2, there are a bunch of options of what you can use them for. It is up to you. You have options here. You can change the press the home button accidentally. So right now you have to push it twice to get back to the launcher. If you don't like that, you can turn this off and make it once. Otherwise, there isn't that much here. Now there is one new setting that was just added in a new update, OLED screen protection. I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, this is pretty annoying. I am probably personally going to turn this off, both of them. But this is where you'd come to turn it off if you're finding it to be pretty annoying. What is happening right now is that if you leave this on for 30 seconds as this screen, you're going to get a pixel refresh that shows up on the screen. That can get kind of annoying if you're in a game, a cutscene, or whatever. It's just going to show up. And so here it is already. It hasn't even been 30 seconds, so I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is kind of annoying. And you have to tap to exit it, or it's just going to exit on its own. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. I am probably just going to turn both of these off. I don't care that much. It's a OLED screen. It's not going to have an issue. I'm fine with it. So that is my thoughts on this. You don't have to follow me on that if you don't feel like it. Otherwise, if you push back, there's one other thing you should be aware of. Head into System, head over to System Updates, and this is where you can check for updates. It'll notify you if there's an update, but if you feel like just checking, you can come and do it here, and that's how you find out. Otherwise, that's really all I want to do, is get you to a good spot for emulation. If you need anything further, more advanced, I have all of those guides in the description, so you can check all of those out. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow. Come join me on the Discord to talk all about handhelds. Support me through YouTube membership if you like my stuff. And hope you all have a good one.